Hey everyone, welcome to Symmetry Solutions Live, where we here as the Symmetry Solutions team try to come at you most Fridays. We're not super consistent, but most Fridays we try to be on here to address a question that we get kind of from you, from our audience per se. And we got one the other day that is pretty basic. How do I know if I have an eating disorder? This is a really good question. And with me, I have Karen Cord. She's part of my Symmetry Solutions team, and this is kind of an area in her expertise in her toolbox. So super excited to talk to her about it. I know, Karen, probably these days with COVID and all of us being at home a lot more than normal and with different, I'm guessing most of us probably feel like we have a not so healthy relationship with our food.
Absolutely,
one of
yes.
my challenges. So, anyway, but yeah,
Same here.
Yeah, why don't you start us out by just kind of giving us an overview of maybe the difference between a clinical diagnosis versus like just more general relationships that most of us, I think, would say, you know, food is maybe an ongoing consideration.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, to have a clinical, diagnosable eating disorder, there's a set of criteria that usually is certain behavior, say it's binging and purging, or say it's just binging or restricting your food. Those are some, but there has to be a certain criteria that's met over, say, a 2-week period of time. Most of us probably aren't going to fall into that category, even if we struggle with body image, or we're kind of often on dieters, or we overeat at special occasions, or when we're in quarantine. Those kind of things are normal adaptive type behaviors that we all humans do, right? We're at home more, we're closer to the kitchen, we're bored, we're feeling a little lonely. Now, with someone with an eating disorder, one that's diagnosable as, say, bulimia, binge eating disorder, anorexia, not only is it going to be more of a prevalent kind of experience in their everyday lives and on their minds sort of constantly, but their life is going to be that is going to create this out of balance extreme where I've given this example before. So we all overeat on Thanksgiving. We all overeat when we're, alone more, or when we're by our kitchen, or when we're worried. For somebody with, an eating disorder or binge eating disorder, for example, or bulimia, we're kind of regulating our emotions kind of regularly through our eating. And so there's a little feedback there, but there's this kind of consistent cycle we're going through, a shame cycle. We're trying to find control, we're trying to find stability, and we do that through food regularly, primarily. Not necessarily sometimes food, sometimes we go for a walk, sometimes we do this, and it's creating an imbalance in our lives. Maybe we're more isolated than we want to be, we're not having as much connection and relationships that we want to have, we're spending so much time worrying about calories, or not doing a behavior, or not eating, that it's kind of taking up our entire world. You can compare it to somebody with OCD versus someone that just likes a neat and tidy home and is organized. They can go a few days without, say they're sick, they can not vacuum or not clean or dust their house. But somebody that is out of balance with that, and it creates fear and panic and anxiety in them, and they have to compulsively do that thing, and they literally can't avoid it. So someone with an eating disorder, it's out of balance. 70% or close to it of us, experience disordered eating here, but it's not creating a very large, and this imbalance in our lives to where we're missing out on all other things. It's creating health problems. It's creating isolation. It's creating all these sort of things that are not leading to our happiness, basically. And so do we all kind of fall outside that line sometimes? Absolutely. I do. I'm still trying to figure out that balance in my life. We all are. But what is present that isn't present for somebody that just does it sometimes, for somebody with an eating disorder, is that fear and panic. Like, I normally like to run 2 hours a day because it fulfills me and it's fun. If I have to miss it for a couple days, like in quarantine, if I can't leave my house, what is that doing to me? Is it just, oh, well, I'll do something else. I'll exercise indoors, or I'll whatever. Or is it causing fear and anxiety or making you risk your health because you have to do it? And so we could go into all the different criteria of what different eating disorders are. There's so many. There's atypical eating disorders. There's that where you're constantly kind of regularly in your life engaging in disordered eating, but it's kind of different all the time. You know, sometimes I'm binging and purging, and then I'm going on a strict diet for a while, and so they may not fall into, but it's causing again an imbalance. There's fear when you can't engage in it, and so they would fall into that, atypical category. And I would just say it's about balance. Are you happy, healthy, and whole and complete? Living your life the way that you want to, and sometimes not having a great day and engaging in these things? Or are you, your life is built around when you're either going to eat, or how you're going to avoid eating, or how you're going to get rid of what you ate, or how you're going to control or cope with food that we all have to eat every day to survive.
Right.
So
You're
I don't
making,
know if that's helpful, but
no, totally helpful. You're making a distinction though between disordered eating and having an eating disorder. So meaning that all of us
yes.
have moments where we're not making the healthiest of choices. Maybe I ate 4 donuts out of the box instead of just one, or it, you're kind of making a distinction that it seems like it's the level of preoccupation that is up in your mind, and it's also how much distress you're experiencing because of that preoccupation.
Yeah, and that can be a tricky thing to notice too. The amount of distress, because eating disorders do cause a great amount of distress, but usually they're kind of trying to counteract other distress. And so somebody with an eating disorder feels like their eating disorder is helping them stay in control. They might realize to some degree that it's causing an imbalance in their life, but usually it's with a trained professional in that regard on helping them to see the imbalance. They might justify, like, I can't go to now they might say I can't go to the grocery store at all because of COVID. Whereas that might be true, but they may have been avoiding the grocery store for a long time for other reasons. Like, I can't walk by cake without buying it and binging and purging because cake is too big of a temptation. And so they might see what they're doing as justified, and they may argue that it's not distressful. um, but though it's more oftentimes to the people around them than it is to them. But yes, eating disorders are all about control and trying to manage our feelings, trying to be in control of something when something's out of control. And it becomes imbalanced when it starts creating other problems. Like you said, the other distress, the isolation, the preoccupation with food or avoidance of food. And so, yeah, we all engage in disordered eating sometimes, but there's certain criteria to be met to be diagnosed with an actual eating disorder. But the more we talk about it and realize if 2/3 of us are engaging in this, at least on a occasional basis, it's a real thing. It's because you can't just avoid it like you would, say, if you're a recovering alcoholic, or something. I'm just not going to go to the bar anymore. Food you have to eat 3 to 6 times a day. It's a very social thing. It's absolutely necessary for your survival. And so it's very, very tricky. It's very tricky to find the line of find balance. And it's not something we all do perfectly all the time. But as long as, if we're moving toward balance, that's a great thing. If we're finding ourselves more and more out of balance, it might be time to seek help. And there's no problem. I mean, there's no There's no shame in that. If it's something that 2/3 of us are struggling with, it must be pretty common and pretty normal for a lot of people.
Where do you get that 2/3 number from? Is that a statistic that you're pulling from?
It's, yeah, like the National Institute of Eating Disorders. Like there's, and I might be getting that wrong, but there's a lot of institutions that put out those facts and those numbers, and that's research based and statistics. I'm not just pulling it out of my head. I think I saw a number, it was about 67%. And that sometimes might even be on the generous low side, because a lot of us don't self-report these struggles or know how to even talk about them. So, saying 6-7% might actually be on, in my opinion, might be on the low side.
Right.
But yeah, that's actual statistic.
Yeah, no, that's great. I apologize that we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. I think most of you will be able to hear Karen just fine. Her audio is doing pretty well. Video, she freezes in and out, but anyway, we'll just deal with it. She's traveling and in a hotel, so we're doing the best we can with internet connection. But yeah, I think your point, one of our other team members, Jenny Elledge, she mentioned right before we started this, like, in this country, how can you not have, eating disorders or disordered eating? Because we're just, we are so focused on body image as a big part of our value, right? So you have to look a certain way to like you have value in our society. Two, we have, fast food galore and access to foods that aren't necessarily very healthy for us on a very regular basis. And that's even true more for marginalized populations, like those who deal with poverty or different socioeconomic status. Oh no, I hope we didn't lose Karen altogether. Maybe we did. But just to kind of make my point, there's just so many reasons why we struggle, not to mention also our busy, stressful day-to-day lives where it's hard sometimes to make a home cooked meal. There's not a lot of options that are either, less expensive or able to be things that we would fix for our families. So I do think we lost Karen. So I hope that she gave at least some basic information for the, oh, maybe she's back, for the question. But
I'm back.
Oh, good. But the reality is that we struggle in this country for a lot of good reasons. And I think one of the points that you were making, Karen, is a lot of people don't even recognize or know that they have an eating disorder because the disordered aspects of these things are so normal. Like they're just considered normal. And to your point, not just that you're binging and purging or that you qualify for like an anorexic criteria, if the DSM-5 now has a more generalized eating disorder criteria too. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's like this diagnosis that's atypical, meaning that you struggle with this with different aspects of it, but you don't fit into a certain box exactly perfectly. Because many of us, even that are diagnosed with a certain diagnosis, aren't exactly the same as somebody else diagnosed with the same thing. And, there's a lot of stigma and misunderstanding, misconception around there about what eating disorders are. And I think that has been a great thing for people to be able to get the help that they need. A lot of it probably has to do with insurance as well, because you might need help and your insurance is saying, well, you don't have any disorder.
Mm.
Am I back? Okay, can you hear me? It kind of cut out for a second. But so, and then there's also like other diagnoses like orthorexia. That's not really a diagnosis yet, but it's like anybody can you think of that's obsessed with eating pure and diets and doing it all perfectly, but they're normal weight and they're not restricting, they're not counting calories, they're not. And so there's so many
Okay, I think, did we lose her again? All right. Well, I am going to finish up what she was talking about, which is this kind of category of people who may seem very healthy because they're so health focused and they eat all the healthy things, and yet it's done in a fairly non-flexible way. So again, kind of to Karen's point, it's not so much are you running 2 hours or eating avocados or eating a donut every now and then, is are you doing those kinds of things in a way that's in balance with your life? Are you doing those things in a way that is causing your life to be edified and feel health savvy instead of feeling bogged down with anxiety and or depression if you don't meet certain of your own expectations, how hard you are on yourself in regards to those things, etc. So hopefully we've answered some of your questions. This wasn't meant to be completely comprehensive, but here at Symmetry Solutions, we have a great team of providers that have been trained in lots of different areas of mental health. We have therapists, we have wellness coaches. Karen specifically focuses on eating disorders as one of the things that she works with people on, as well as other kind of life transitions and kind of just life wellness in general as a wellness coach. And I'll make sure to put the link to our website in case you're interested for more information. If you're interested to see one of us on the team, or we can also always, we're more than happy to offer referrals for places that maybe are a better fit for you in accordance to maybe your location geographically, etc. We do offer a lot of online services. So that's something that you can, if you don't necessarily have to be geographically close to us in order to use Symmetry Solutions, but just check out our website, check out the different providers pages, and hopefully you can use our team as an asset for your life. And we'll see you hopefully next Friday. Take care, everybody.